Queen Lisa stood before the massive window of her throne room, looking out at the glowing city below. 12 star systems bowed to her rule, 3,000 years of unbroken peace and power. The Velthari Empire was the greatest force in this part of the galaxy, and she had led it for over 2 centuries. Her skin shimmered with a pale blue light, as all Velthari did. Her eyes held the wisdom of ages, and her mind could touch others across vast distances. She was powerful, ancient, and absolutely certain of her place in the universe. "Your Majesty," a voice called from behind her. Commander Ralvin entered the throne room, his armor gleaming. He was her most trusted warrior, a veteran of countless battles. "We have received a strange report from the outer territories." Lissa turned slowly. "Strange how?" "The mining colony at Helvor Station sent a distress call. The Kreth have attacked." Ralvin paused, his expression troubled. "But there is something else. They mentioned a human." Lissa's eyes narrowed. "A human? Those primitive creatures barely have space travel. What would one be doing at Helvor?" The report was unclear. The human was working as a liaison for one of the trade consortiums. Her name is Haye Jin. Lissa waved her hand dismissively. "Humans are no concern of ours. They are weak, short-lived, and technologically backward. Focus on the Kreth threat. Send 3 warships and a battalion of soldiers. That should be more than enough." Ralvin bowed. "As you command, Your Majesty." As he left, Lissa returned to the window. Humans. The very thought amused her. She had read the old texts in the Imperial Library, the ones that spoke of warriors from the Death World. Ancient stories passed down from conquered civilizations, tales meant to give hope to the hopeless. They described humans as unstoppable fighters, creatures forged in violence and pain, beings who refused to die even when they should. Nonsense, of course. Lissa had seen humans before, rare as they were in this part of space. They were small, fragile things. Their lifespans were barely 100 years. They had no psychic abilities, no natural armor, no enhanced strength. They were nothing compared to the Velthari. She had once asked her scholars about these myths. They explained that conquered species often created legends about mighty warriors who would one day save them. It gave them comfort in their defeat. The human legends were simply more elaborate than most. Lissa dismissed the thought and returned to her daily duties. She had an empire to run. Far away, at the edge of Velthari space, the mining colony of Helvor Station burned. The Kreth raiders had come in force, their ships blocking out the stars. These savage creatures cared nothing for peace or treaties. They killed, they took, and they left only ruins behind. Haye Jin crouched behind a damaged cargo container, her heart pounding. She was young, barely 30 years old, and this was supposed to be a simple job. Facilitate trade between humans and other species, keep records, stay out of trouble. Now she was trapped in a war zone. The Kreth warriors were massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick scales. They carried weapons that could melt through metal. She had watched them tear through the station's defenses like they were made of paper. She clutched her communication device, trying to send one more message before the Kreth found her. Her fingers shook as she typed out the emergency code. There was only one person she could call, only one person who might actually come. Tae Yang. They had served together years ago, back when she had briefly joined Earth's defense forces. She had been a medic. He had been a soldier. They had survived 3 missions together before she decided military life wasn't for her. But they had stayed in touch, and she knew he was somewhere in this sector, working as a freelance security consultant. The message sent just as a Kreth warrior rounded the corner. Haye Jin closed her eyes, waiting for the end. It never came. The Velthari forces had finally arrived. She heard the distinctive sound of their energy weapons, the shouts of their soldiers. The Kreth warrior turned away from her, engaging the new threat. Hyejin ran, following the sounds of Velthari voices. She found them at the main plaza, surrounded by Kreth forces. The Velthari fought well, their psychic abilities allowing them to predict attacks and strike with precision. But there were too many Kreth, and they were too strong. Commander Ralvin led the defense personally. He had arrived on the first ship, eager to prove that the Velthari military could handle any threat. Now he was beginning to doubt. The Kreth were more numerous than the scouts had reported, and they fought with a savage fury that even his psychic warriors struggled against. "Fall back to the inner sector," he ordered. "Establish a defensive perimeter." His soldiers obeyed, retreating in good order. But Ralvin knew the truth. They were losing. The Kreth would overrun them within hours. He sent an emergency signal back to Veltar Prime, requesting reinforcements. Then he saw the human woman, Hyejin, stumbling toward his lines. 2 soldiers pulled her to safety. "You are the human liaison?" Ralvin asked. She nodded, gasping for breath. "I sent a message. Help is coming." Ralvin felt a flash of anger. "We are the help. The Velthari Empire does not need assistance from humans." "You will," Hyejin said quietly. "You really will." Ralvin wanted to argue, but another wave of Kreth attackers forced his attention back to the battle. The defense line was crumbling. His soldiers were exhausted. The Kreth seemed endless. In orbit above the colony, a small ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was old, patched together from parts of a dozen different vessels. It bore no military markings, no insignia of any major power. It looked like it should have fallen apart years ago. On the bridge, Tae Yang read Hyejin's message one more time. His face was hard, weathered by years of combat. Scars crossed his hands and arms. He was of average height for a human, solidly built but not exceptionally large. He wore simple combat armor, dented and scratched from use. "Sir, the Velthari have 3 warships in orbit," his ship's AI reported. "They're engaging Kreth cruisers. The colony is under heavy attack." "Can you get me to the surface?" Tae Yang asked. "Not safely. The Kreth control the landing zones. You'd be shot down before you reach the ground." Tae Yang smiled. But there was no humor in it. "I didn't ask if it was safe. I asked if you could get me there." "Yes, sir, but I calculate a 70% chance of ship destruction." "Good enough. Take us in." The small ship dove toward the planet, dodging fire from the Kreth vessels. Tae Yang strapped himself into the drop pod, checking his weapons one final time. An old rifle, a pistol, several knives, and enough explosives to level a building. Simple tools, but he knew how to use them. The ship shuddered as it took a hit. Alarms blared. 30 seconds to drop zone," the AI called. Tae Yang took a deep breath. Hyejin needed him. That was all that mattered. He had failed people before, lost friends and squad mates. He wouldn't lose her. 10 seconds. The pod launched, throwing him toward the burning colony below. Through the small window, he could see the chaos. The Kreth everywhere. The Velthari fighting desperately. The civilians trapped in the crossfire. He hit the ground hard, the pod crumpling around him. The door blew open and Tae Yang stepped out into a war zone. Smoke filled the air. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. The sound of weapons fire echoed from every direction. A Kreth warrior spotted him and charged. 3 meters of muscle and rage, teeth bared, weapon raised. Tae Yang didn't run. He didn't hide. He simply raised his rifle and fired. The myth was about to become reality. The Kreth warrior fell. A hole burned through its chest. Tae Yang was already moving, his rifle swinging toward the next target. 3 more Kreth charged him from different directions. He fired twice, rolled behind a damaged vehicle, and threw something small and round. The explosion tore through 2 of the attackers. The third leaped over the flames, claws extended. Tae Yang dropped his rifle and drew a knife. The blade flashed once, twice. The Kreth warrior collapsed, dark blood pooling beneath it. On the Velthari defensive line, Commander Ralvin stared at his tactical display in disbelief. A single red dot marked the human's position. Around it, Kreth's signatures were disappearing one by one. "This cannot be accurate," Ralven said. "Check the sensors." "Already done, Commander," his tactical officer replied. "The readings are correct. One human is cutting through the Kreth forward positions." "Impossible. Humans are weak. Everyone knows this." But the display didn't lie. The human was moving deeper into Kreth territory, toward the command post where they held the prisoners. Ralven had planned to attempt a rescue once reinforcements arrived. The human was going now, alone. "Should we support him?" one of the officers asked. Ralven wanted to say yes, but he couldn't risk his already depleted forces. "No. We hold this position. If the human succeeds, we extract the prisoners. If he fails..." Ralven paused. "Then we learned something about humans." Tae-Yang moved through the ruined colony like a ghost. He used the smoke and debris for cover, striking from unexpected angles. The Kreth were powerful and savage, but they were also predictable. They relied on their strength and their numbers. They didn't expect an enemy to fight smart. He took down 6 more Kreth warriors before they realized someone was hunting them. By then, he had reached the command post. It was a fortified building at the colony's center, surrounded by guards, too many guards to fight directly. Tae-Yang studied the building, looking for weaknesses. There, a damaged section of wall on the 2nd floor. He could reach it if he climbed the adjacent structure. He moved quickly, using pipes and broken metal to climb. His hands bled from gripping sharp edges. His old injuries ached. He ignored all of it. Pain was just information. It told him he was still alive. The 2nd floor entrance was barely large enough for him to squeeze through. Inside, he could hear voices, the harsh, guttural language of the Kreth. He counted at least 15 of them in the room below. He-Jin and 12 other prisoners sat against the far wall, their hands bound. 2 Kreth guards stood watch over them. The rest of the warriors were celebrating their victory, confident that the Velthari were beaten. Tae-Yang pulled out his explosives, setting them carefully around the room's support beams. Then he dropped through the hole in the floor, firing as he fell. The first 2 Kreth died before they knew he was there. The others scrambled for weapons, shouting in surprise and rage. Tae-Yang rolled behind a table, using it as cover. Bullets and energy bolts tore through the furniture. "Haye-Jin!" he shouted. "When I move, you run!" He heard her voice, shaky but determined. "Tae-Yang, how did you—" "Later, get ready." He threw another explosive, this one toward the main door. The blast collapsed part of the ceiling, blocking the entrance. The Kreth warriors roared in fury, charging his position. Tae-Yang rose to meet them. His rifle was empty. He drew his pistol with one hand and his knife with the other. The first Kreth reached him, and he put 3 rounds into its face. The second grabbed his arm. He drove the knife into its throat, twisted, and pulled free. They kept coming. He kept fighting. Every move was calculated, efficient. No wasted motion, no hesitation. This was what he had trained for his entire life. A claw raked across his shoulder, tearing through armor and flesh. He felt the pain but pushed it aside. He dropped the empty pistol and pulled out a second knife. 2 blades now, spinning and cutting. Another explosion. This one behind the Kreth lines. The support beams he had rigged gave way, and part of the building collapsed. The Kreth warriors were thrown off balance. "Now!" Tae-Yang shouted. Hye-Jin moved, pulling the other prisoners with her. They ran through the dust and smoke toward the hole in the wall. Tae-Yang covered their escape, fighting the remaining Kreth with everything he had. A massive warrior, larger than the others, tackled him to the ground. Tae-Yang felt ribs crack. The Kreth's jaws opened wide, aiming for his throat. He jammed his knife up under its chin, through the soft tissue into its brain. The weight of the dead Kreth pinned him down. He struggled to breathe, to move. Blood ran down his side, his vision blurred. "Not yet," he whispered to himself. "Not until she's safe." He shoved the body aside and stumbled toward the exit. Behind him, the building groaned and shook. The explosives had done their job too well. The entire structure was coming down. Tai Yang ran, each step agony. He could see daylight ahead. See Hyejin and the prisoners climbing down to safety. Just a few more meters. The ceiling collapsed behind him. Dust and debris filled the air. He threw himself through the opening, falling 2 stories to the ground below. He landed badly, heard something snap in his leg. But he had made it. They had all made it. Hyejin was there, pulling him away from the collapsing building. "You idiot!" she said, tears streaming down her face. "You absolute idiot!" "Nice to see you too," Tai Yang managed to say. Commander Ralvin arrived with a squad of soldiers minutes later. They stared at the scene in silence. The Kreth command post was destroyed. 27 Kreth warriors lay dead. The prisoners were safe, and 1 human sat on the ground, bleeding from a dozen wounds, his armor shattered, his weapons empty. "You," Ralvin said, approaching carefully. "How did you do this?" Tai Yang looked up at him. "Same way anyone does anything. 1 step at a time. But the injuries, you should be dead." Tai Yang tried to shrug, winced at the pain. "Probably, but I had a job to finish first." Ralvin extended his psychic senses, trying to understand what made this human different. What he found shocked him. There were no cybernetic enhancements, no genetic modifications, no hidden technology. The human was exactly what he appeared to be, flesh and blood, wounded and exhausted. And yet he had accomplished what a squad of Velthari warriors could not. "What are you?" Ralvin asked quietly. "Tired," Tai Yang said. "Very, very tired." His eyes closed and he collapsed. Hyejin caught him before he hit the ground. "He needs medical attention," she said urgently. "Now!" Ralvin made a decision that would change the course of history. "Bring him to the flagship. Use our best medical technology. And contact Queen Lissa. Tell her that the old legends are true. The humans are real, and she needs to see this for herself." As the soldiers carefully lifted Tai Yang onto a medical stretcher, Ralvin looked at the destroyed command post, at the dead Kreth warriors, at the impossible victory. He had always thought the old texts were myths. Stories told by defeated civilizations to comfort themselves. Now he knew the truth. Humans weren't myths. They were something far more dangerous. They were real. On Veltar Prime, Queen Lissa received the message. She read it 3 times, certain there must be some mistake. But Ralvin wouldn't lie to her. If he said he had witnessed something extraordinary, then he had. She gave orders to prepare the royal court. When this human recovered, she would see him for herself. She would test him, question him, and understand what he truly was. Because if the legends were true, if humans really were the warriors from the Death World, then the galaxy was about to change. The Velthari Empire had stood unchallenged for 3,000 years. But perhaps they had been alone at the top for too long. Perhaps it was time to discover what else lurked in the darkness between stars. Perhaps it was time to meet the humans. As Tai Yang was carried aboard the Velthari flagship, unconscious and broken, none of them knew what was coming. They didn't know that this single encounter would reshape the destiny of civilizations. They didn't know that a queen would soon face the impossible, that an empire would be tested, and that humanity would finally step out of the shadows. They only knew that everything had changed. The myths were real, and reality was far more terrifying than any legend. Tai Yang woke in a room filled with soft blue light. The pain that had consumed him was gone. He sat up carefully, examining his body. The wounds were healed, though fresh scars marked where they had been. His broken ribs felt whole. Even his leg worked properly again. "Incredible," he muttered. Whatever medical technology the Velthari used, it was far beyond anything Earth possessed. The door opened and Hyejin entered, relief flooding her face. You're awake. Thank the stars. How long was I out? 3 days. Their doctors said your injuries should have killed you. They didn't understand how you were even conscious after the rescue. She sat beside the bed. Tai Yang, they want to take you to Veltar Prime, to meet Queen Lissa herself. Tai Yang's expression hardened. No, I came for you. You're safe. I'm leaving. You can't. Commander Ralvin posted guards outside. They're not hostile, but they won't let you leave. She took his hand. Please, just hear what they have to say. They granted me asylum, promised me protection. They seem genuinely curious about humans, not threatening. Tai Yang considered. He had heard of Queen Lissa, knew the Velthari Empire's reputation. They were powerful, but generally fair in their dealings, and he was in no condition to fight his way off a warship. Fine, he said, but if this goes wrong, I'm blaming you. Haye Jin smiled weakly. Fair enough. The journey to Veltar Prime took 5 days. Tai Yang spent the time recovering his strength and studying the Velthari. They were fascinating people. Psychic abilities, advanced technology, and a rigid sense of honor. They treated him with cautious respect, like a dangerous animal that might be tamed. Commander Ralvin visited him twice. They didn't speak much, but Tai Yang could feel the commander's psychic probes, trying to understand what made him different. Tai Yang had encountered psychics before. He knew how to keep his mind guarded, revealing nothing. When they arrived at Veltar Prime, Tai Yang was struck by its beauty. The capital city gleamed like a crystal, towers reaching toward the sky, connected by bridges of light. It was a world that had never known war, never known hardship. He was escorted to the royal palace, through halls filled with art and history. Velthari citizens stopped to stare at him. They had never seen a human before, or if they had, never one like this. Scarred, hard-eyed, moving with the controlled grace of a predator. The throne room was massive. Queen Lissa sat upon a raised platform surrounded by advisors and guards. Her elite Psy-Guard warriors stood at attention, their armor gleaming, their minds radiating power. Tai Yang walked forward, Haye Jin beside him. He didn't bow. On Earth, you showed respect through actions, not gestures. You are the human called Tai Yang, Queen Lissa said. Her voice was beautiful, like music, but carried absolute authority. I am. You killed 27 Kreth warriors, destroyed their command post, and rescued 13 prisoners, all while suffering injuries that should have killed you. She leaned forward. How? Training, experience, necessity. That is not an answer. My sensors detected no enhancements in your body, no cybernetics, no genetic modifications. You are ordinary flesh and blood. Yet you accomplished what would challenge my best warriors. Tai Yang met her gaze steadily. Your Majesty, I'm just a soldier. There's nothing special about me. I do not believe you. Lissa gestured to her advisors. The old texts speak of humans as warriors from a death world, beings forged in violence, who refuse to die, who fight with savage ferocity. Are these texts true? Partly. Earth is dangerous, yes. It taught us to be survivors. But we're not savages. We're just people who learned hard lessons. One of the advisors spoke up. Impossible. Your world cannot be so terrible that it creates warriors like you. Tai Yang turned to face the advisor. Earth has predators that hunt in packs, diseases that can kill millions, weather that can destroy cities. We spent most of our history fighting each other for resources, territory, survival. Every human alive is descended from thousands of generations of survivors. We didn't become warriors by choice. We became warriors because anything else meant death. The court was silent. Queen Lissa studied him carefully. You survived wounds that would kill my people. How? Human bodies have redundant systems. If one organ fails, others compensate. We heal fast because our ancestors who healed slow died young. Pain doesn't stop us because we evolved to keep fighting even when injured. It's not magic. It's just biology shaped by millions of years of struggling to survive. Show me, Lisa said suddenly. Your Majesty? Ralvin stepped forward, concerned. If his words are true, prove them. Commander, you will spar with this human. Non-lethal engagement. I want to see what he can truly do. Tai Yang glanced at Ralvin, sizing him up. The commander was larger, enhanced with psychic abilities, wearing advanced armor. This was a test he couldn't win, but refusing would be worse. Understood, Tai Yang said. They cleared a space in the throne room. Ralvin removed his heavy armor, keeping only light protection. Tai Yang stretched, feeling his newly healed muscles. The scars ached, but he pushed the discomfort aside. Begin, Queen Lissa commanded. Ralvin moved first, faster than Tai Yang expected. A psychic warrior could predict an opponent's intentions, see the future a few seconds ahead. Ralvin knew where Tai Yang would dodge before Tai Yang did. The first strike hit Tai Yang in the ribs, precise and controlled. He felt the impact, rolled with it, and came up swinging. His fist passed through empty air. Ralvin was already behind him, delivering another blow. Tai Yang hit the ground, tasted blood. He had fought psychics before, knew their weakness. They relied too much on prediction, not enough on adaptation. If he could make his actions random, irrational, their advantage disappeared. He rose and charged, not at Ralvin, but at the wall beside him. Ralvin hesitated, confused. Tai Yang kicked off the wall, changing direction mid-air, his elbow aimed at Ralvin's face. The commander blocked, but barely. For the first time, surprise showed on his features. What followed was 7 minutes of brutal combat. Tai Yang couldn't predict Ralvin's moves, but he didn't need to. He made himself unpredictable, erratic. He accepted hits that he could have dodged if it meant landing his own strikes. He fought through pain that would have stopped a Velthari warrior. Ralvin was forced to adapt. The human wouldn't quit. Every time he knocked Tai Yang down, the human got back up. Every injury just seemed to make him more determined. Finally, Ralvin used his full strength. A psychic blast hit Tai Yang in the chest, throwing him across the room. He slammed into a pillar and slid to the floor, gasping. "Yield," Ralvin said, breathing hard. "You have proven your point." Tai Yang tried to stand, made it halfway up, then collapsed. His body had finally reached its limit, but he had lasted far longer than anyone expected. The court was silent again, but this time the silence was different. They had seen it now. Seen what a human could do, seen what the legends described. Queen Lissa rose from her throne and walked down to where Tai Yang lay. She knelt beside him, her expression unreadable. "You lost," she said quietly, "but only barely. Against one of my finest warriors, enhanced with abilities you do not possess, you nearly won through sheer determination." "Sorry to disappoint," Tai Yang managed to say. "You misunderstand. I am not disappointed. I am terrified." She stood, addressing her court. The old texts were not exaggerations. If anything, they understated the threat. One human, alone, nearly defeated our champion. What would an army of humans accomplish? She looked back at Tai Yang. "I have a proposal for you. Become my advisor on human affairs. Help me understand your people. In exchange, I offer you and Haye-Jin protection, resources, and freedom to travel anywhere in my empire." Tai Yang pulled himself to his feet, wincing. "I have a counter-proposal. I'll advise you, but only if you agree to treat any humans in your empire as equals, not subjects or curiosities." The court gasped. No one spoke to the queen this way, but Lissa smiled. "You have courage, human. Very well, I accept your terms." She extended her hand. Tai Yang shook it, sealing the agreement. "One more thing," Tai Yang said. You need to understand something about my people. I'm not special among humans. I'm just a soldier, average by our standards. If you truly want to prepare for contact with humanity, you need to know this. Every human you'll ever meet is a survivor from a world that tried to kill us. We don't know how to quit because quitting means death. That's just who we are. Queen Lissa nodded slowly. For the first time in 2 centuries, she felt uncertain about the future. She had ruled with absolute confidence, knowing the Velthari were superior to all other species. Now she knew the truth. Somewhere in the galaxy, there was a species that might be their equal, or worse, their superior, in the ways that truly mattered. The myths were real, and the reality was far more complicated than any legend. 3 months passed since Taeyang's arrival at Veltar Prime. Life had settled into an unusual routine. He served as Queen Lissa's consultant on human affairs, answering questions about Earth culture, military tactics, and the human mindset. Hie Jin worked as a cultural liaison, helping bridge the gap between species. The Velthari military had been particularly interested in Taeyang's training methods. He taught them small unit tactics, urban warfare, and how to fight when technology failed. Some officers resented learning from a primitive species. Others saw the value in his lessons. Commander Ralvin had become something close to a friend. They sparred regularly, and Ralvin was learning to fight without relying solely on his psychic abilities. He respected Taeyang in a way few Velthari respected outsiders. But strange things were happening across the Empire. "Another one," Queen Lissa said, reading the report on her display. "That makes 7 humans identified in Velthari space in the past month." Taeyang stood before her throne, reading over the names. "Daehyun is a traitor. I met him once, years ago. He's good at finding rare equipment." "Military equipment," Lissa corrected. "His transactions suggest he supplies arms to various factions." "Maybe. Humans are pragmatic. We go where the work is. And this one?" Lissa pulled up another file. "Nari. She arrived on Veltar Minor last week and has already revolutionized our ship engineering with several innovations." Taeyang shrugged. "Nari's brilliant. I'm not surprised she's making waves." "And Sung Ho, the explorer who has mapped more uncharted territory in 3 months than our scouts did in 3 years?" "He's thorough." Lissa set down her display, frustration evident. "Taeyang. I am not a fool. 7 humans, all highly skilled in different fields, all appearing in my empire within months of each other. This is not coincidence." Taeyang met her gaze steadily. "No, it's not." "Then explain." He chose his words carefully. "Humanity has been expanding quietly for decades. We don't come in fleets or make grand announcements. We come as individuals. Traders, scientists, explorers, soldiers for hire. We embed ourselves in other civilizations, learn from them, trade with them. We're patient. You are spies. We're observers. There's a difference. We don't sabotage or steal secrets. We just want to understand the galaxy before we fully reveal ourselves." Lissa considered this. "How many humans are out here?" "I don't know exact numbers. Thousands, maybe. Scattered across hundreds of worlds and stations." "And Earth's government knows about this?" "They encourage it. Humanity learned a hard lesson in our past. We almost destroyed ourselves with wars and conflicts. Now we're careful. We study other species, understand their strengths and weaknesses, before making formal contact." Taeyang paused. "You're not the first empire to discover us, Your Majesty. But you're one of the first to not immediately see us as a threat." Before Lissa could respond, alarms blared throughout the palace. Ralvin burst into the throne room, his face grim. "Your Majesty, we have a situation. Long-range scouts report a massive fleet approaching from the Kreth territories. They've allied with the Narog Confederacy." Lissa stood, her calm demeanor cracking. "How many ships?" "Over 200. It's the largest military force assembled against us in centuries. They're targeting Veltar Prime directly. The throne room erupted in chaos. Advisors shouted orders. Military commanders began coordinating defenses. Lisa's mind raced. The Velthari fleet was powerful, but 200 ships, combining Kreth savagery with Narog technology, was a genuine threat. "How long until they arrive?" she demanded. 4 days, Your Majesty." 4 days to prepare for the largest battle the Empire had faced in 3,000 years. Tai Yang stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I can help." "You and what army, human? One soldier, no matter how skilled, cannot turn the tide of battle. Not me. Other humans. If you permit it, I can send a call for help. There are humans within reach who would answer." Lisa wanted to refuse. Pride demanded that the Velthari handle this alone, but she was wise enough to recognize reality. "How many could you gather?" "I don't know. Maybe none. Maybe dozens. Humans don't follow orders from a central authority out here. Each crew makes their own decisions." "But I can ask." She nodded. "Do it." Taeyang used a private channel, broadcasting on frequencies only humans would monitor. His message was simple. "This is Taeyang. Veltar Prime needs help. Kreth-Narog Alliance incoming. Who's available?" The responses came slowly at first, then faster. Old friends, former colleagues, humans he'd never met, but who knew his reputation. By the end of the day, 17 ships had confirmed they were en route. 17? Ralvin looked at the roster in disbelief. "These vessels are outdated, some barely spaceworthy. How can they possibly help?" "Don't judge human ships by their appearance," Taeyang said. "We're good at making old things work. More importantly, look at the crews." Ralvin read through the files. Each ship carried between 3 and 20 humans, all with military or combat experience. Former soldiers, mercenaries, security contractors. Some were young, others were veterans, but all had volunteered to fight against impossible odds for people they'd never met. "Why?" Ralvin asked. "Why would they risk their lives for us?" "Because Taeyang asked," Hyojin said quietly. She had been listening from the side of the room. "And because it's the right thing to do. That's reason enough for humans." Queen Lissa studied the data. 17 human ships against 200 enemy vessels. It seemed absurd. But she had learned to trust Taeyang's judgment. "Very well. Commander Ralvin, you will coordinate with the human forces. Create a joint command structure. Use their expertise where it benefits us." "Your Majesty, I must protest. Allowing aliens to fight alongside our military is necessary," Lisa cut him off. "This is not the time for pride. The Empire's survival takes precedence over tradition." Over the next 3 days, preparations intensified. The human ships arrived in ones and twos, each greeted with suspicion by the Velthari fleet. But Taeyang and Ralvin worked tirelessly to integrate them into the defense plan. The strategy centered on 3 key points: the orbital shipyards above Veltar Prime, where the main fleet battle would occur; the moon base of Veltar Minor, which controlled defense satellites and sensor arrays; and the asteroid mining fields, which could serve as cover for guerrilla attacks. Taeyang would lead human ground forces on Veltar Minor, working alongside Ralvin. The other human ships would coordinate with the Velthari fleet, using their smaller size and maneuverability to harass larger vessels. Nara met with Velthari engineers, sharing ideas for quick ship modifications. Dae-Hyun provided weapons and equipment from his mysterious sources. Sung-Ho used his exploration data to identify tactical advantages in the surrounding space. The night before the battle, Taeyang stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Hyojin joined him. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. "This is bigger than anything I've faced before. But you volunteered anyway. Someone has to stand up. If not us, then who?" He looked at her. "You should evacuate with the civilians." "No. I'm a medic, remember? I'm staying to help the wounded. Taeyang wanted to argue but knew it would be useless. He-Jin was as stubborn as any human. Try not to get killed, she said. Same to you. The next morning, the enemy fleet arrived. 200 ships, bristling with weapons, blocking out the stars. The Kreth-Narog alliance had come to destroy the Velthari Empire once and for all. Queen Lissa watched from her command ship, surrounded by her advisors. Beside her, Taeyang stood ready in full combat gear. He looked calm, but she could sense the tension in his body. This is it, she said quietly. The moment that will define my reign. You'll do fine, Taeyang said. You're tougher than you think. She smiled despite the fear. I learned that from watching you. The enemy fleet began its attack. Energy weapons lit up space. Ships exploded. The battle for Veltar Prime had begun, and somewhere among the chaos, 17 small human ships moved into position, ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do. The myths were about to become legend. The first wave hit hard. Kreth cruisers smashed into the Velthari defensive line, their weapons tearing through shields and armor. Narog destroyers provided covering fire, their precision targeting overwhelming the Velthari fleet's formations. Within the first hour, 12 Velthari warships were destroyed or disabled. Queen Lissa watched the tactical display, her confidence wavering. They were losing. Then the human ships engaged, and everything changed. A pilot named Jae-min flew a fighter so old it belonged in a museum, but he moved through the battlefield like a dancer, weaving between Kreth cruisers, firing at weak points the Velthari hadn't even considered. He destroyed a destroyer's engine, sent it spinning into 2 other ships, creating a chain reaction. Impossible, a Velthari tactical officer muttered. Those maneuvers should have killed him. Humans have higher tolerance for acceleration forces, Taeyang explained. And Jaemin used to race atmospheric fighters through canyons for fun. This is easy for him. Across the battlefield, other human ships performed similar feats. They flew in ways that violated standard combat doctrine, taking risks no sane pilot would attempt. Some ships were destroyed, their pilots dying in brilliant flashes of light, but each sacrifice took multiple enemy vessels with them. At the orbital shipyards, a woman named Da-eun led a boarding team. The shipyards had been damaged in the initial assault, declared lost by Velthari command. Da-eun disagreed. She took her team of 12 humans into the wreckage, turning destroyed sections into ambush points. When Kreth warriors boarded, expecting an easy capture, they found nightmares instead. Humans appeared from shadows, struck, and vanished. They used the zero gravity to their advantage, attacking from unexpected angles. They rigged damaged equipment to explode, turning the shipyard into a massive trap. They're fighting like animals, a Kreth commander snarled, watching his warriors die one by one. No, his tactical officer corrected. They're fighting smart, using terrain, surprise, and our assumptions against us. Da-eun's voice came over the Velthari command channel. Shipyard secured. We're holding this position. Queen Lissa couldn't believe it. A dozen humans had accomplished what she thought impossible. On Veltar Minor, the battle was even more desperate. Taeyang and Commander Ralvin stood at the forward defensive line, watching thousands of Kreth warriors descend from their landing ships. There are too many, a Velthari officer said, his voice shaking. Then we make them pay for every meter, Taeyang replied. He checked his rifle, his explosives, his knives. Everything was ready. The Kreth attacked in waves. The first wave hit the defensive line and died. The second wave pushed further, forcing the defenders back. The third wave broke through in 2 places. Taeyang led a counterattack, 20 humans and 40 Velthari soldiers charging into the breach. What followed was brutal close-quarters combat. No room for tactics, just violence and will. A Kreth warrior grabbed Tai Yang, lifting him off the ground. He jammed his knife into its eye, twisted, pulled free. Another attacked from the left. He deflected its claws, shot it twice, moved to the next target. Blood covered his armor. Some of it was his. He had lost count of his injuries. It didn't matter. The line had to hold. "Fall back," a Velthari commander ordered. "Regroup at the secondary position." "No," Tai Yang said. "We hold here." "You'll die." "Maybe. But they'll die first." Commander Ralvin appeared beside him, his psychic abilities flaring. Together, they rallied the defenders. The line held, barely, but it held. Hours passed. The battle became a blur of violence and exhaustion. Tai Yang's rifle ran out of ammunition. He picked up a Kreth weapon, used it until it overheated, discarded it for another. His body screamed in pain. He ignored it. A massive Kreth champion, 3.5 meters tall, broke through the line. It headed straight for Commander Ralvin, who was too exhausted to defend himself. Tai Yang intercepted, throwing himself at the champion's legs. They went down together. The Kreth's claws raked across Tai Yang's back, tearing through armor and flesh. He felt ribs crack again, felt blood fill his lungs. But he held on, wouldn't let go. "Shoot it!" he shouted to the nearest soldiers. They fired, finally bringing down the champion. But its weight pinned Tai Yang, and he couldn't breathe. His vision darkened. Not yet, he thought. Just a little longer. Other humans pulled the body off him. Someone pressed a medical seal over his worst wounds. He gasped, drawing air into his damaged lungs. "Get to the medical station," a soldier ordered. "After," Tai Yang said. "We hold the line first." 72 hours. That's how long the battle lasted. 72 hours of continuous combat of humans and Velthari fighting side by side. The defenders refused to break, refused to surrender, refused to die easily. In orbit, Jae-min's fighter finally gave out. His last action was to ram his dying ship into a Kreth command cruiser, destroying both in a massive explosion. At the shipyard, Da-Yun's team held until reinforcements arrived, though only 4 of the 12 humans survived. On Veltar Minor, the defensive line held through sheer will and stubbornness. When the Kreth finally withdrew, exhausted and beaten, the defenders could barely stand. Tai Yang sat against a wall, too tired to move. Commander Ralvin slumped beside him. "Your people are insane," Ralvin said. "Maybe," Tai Yang agreed, "but we're still here." In her command ship, Queen Lissa watched the enemy fleet retreat. They had won, but the cost was terrible. Hundreds of Velthari had died. 7 of the 17 human ships were destroyed. Countless others were wounded. But they had won. She ordered her ship to Veltar Minor, needing to see the ground battle site with her own eyes. What she found shocked her. The defensive position was a wasteland, craters, destroyed equipment, bodies everywhere. The humans who survived looked like they had been through hell. Blood, dirt, and exhaustion marked every face. But they stood. Somehow, impossibly, they stood. Lissa approached Tai Yang, who tried to stand at attention but couldn't quite manage it. "Don't," she said softly. "You've earned your rest." "Did we win?" Tai Yang asked. "Yes, because of you and your people." Tai Yang nodded, then passed out. The days that followed were strange. The Velthari Empire had survived its greatest threat, but everything had changed. The humans were no longer curiosities or myths. They were proven warriors, respected and feared in equal measure. Queen Lissa made a formal announcement. The Velthari Empire recognized humanity as a sovereign species and proposed the first Velthari-human alliance. Trade agreements, cultural exchange, mutual defense, all were offered freely. She commissioned a monument in the capital, statues of fallen warriors, both Velthari and human, standing together, their names carved in stone for future generations to remember. In a private ceremony, she honored the survivors. Taeyang received the highest military decoration the Empire could grant. He accepted it quietly, thinking of Jae-min and the others who hadn't made it home. "I never wanted this," he told Lisa later, in a private audience. "We just wanted to explore, to learn, to live peacefully." "I know," Lisa said, "but the galaxy had other plans. Your people adapted, as they always do. And now? Now the galaxy knows you exist. Other civilizations will reach out, some in friendship, others in fear. How humanity responds will shape the future." Taeyang smiled tiredly. "We'll figure it out. We always do." On Earth, the news arrived. The human governments had known about the Velthari battle, had been monitoring the situation closely. Now they faced a decision: remain hidden or step into the light. They chose the light. Ambassadors were dispatched. Trade negotiations began. Humanity's quiet expansion was over. Now came the hard work of building relationships, forming alliances, and finding their place among the stars. Far away, in a dozen different star systems, beings who had dismissed humans as myths now watched warily. Queen Lisa's story spread quickly. The warriors from the Death World were real. They had saved an empire, fought against impossible odds, and refused to surrender. Some species saw opportunity for friendship. Others saw a threat to be eliminated. Most simply wondered what humanity would do next. In her palace, Queen Lisa stood before the same window where this story began. But she was different now, wiser, humbler, more aware of how vast and strange the galaxy truly was. Taeyang joined her, his wounds healed, but new scars marking his body. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I was a fool," Lisa admitted. "I thought the Velthari were superior to all other species. I was so certain of our place in the universe. And now? Now I know better. You taught me that strength isn't about technology or psychic powers. It's about will, determination, and refusing to quit even when you should." "That's not just humans," Taeyang said. "Your people showed the same qualities. You just had to be pushed hard enough to find them." Lisa smiled. "Perhaps. But I'm grateful it was your people who pushed us. Better to learn humility from friends than from enemies." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city rebuild. The scars of battle would fade. New ships would be built. Life would continue. But nothing would ever be the same. The Velthari had met humanity, and both species were forever changed. The myths were true. The warriors from the Death World existed. They weren't monsters or saviors. They were simply humans, survivors, fighters, and friends who refused to quit no matter how bad things got. And that, Queen Lisa realized, was more terrifying and wonderful than any legend. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and dangers, but now at least the Velthari wouldn't face it alone. They had allies, unexpected and unusual, but allies nonetheless. The story was far from over. This was just the beginning of humanity's journey among the stars. But it was a good beginning, forged in fire and sealed in blood. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, other species watched and wondered, what else didn't they know about the galaxy? What other myths might be real? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the universe would never underestimate humanity again.